Quiet was Sheila Chandra's second solo album after leaving Monsoon, and Indie Pop Records released it in 1984. It was the album that Sheila started writing on, and she'd always said that everything to do with songwriting, well, that's what other people do. I'm a singer. But by the end of 1983, Sheila was ready to take on the role of writer with Martin Smith and myself. I've been writing for about 15 years, and I started writing first by playing boogie woogie, getting into and carried away and kind of really in a trance kind of state, really losing myself in the music. And the tracks got longer and longer from people like Meadlux Lewis and the boogie woogie heroes. And so by the time I listened back to it, I started realizing, well, this isn't his. This is my composition. I've developed it to a point where I could claim some of the writing if I was to have released it. And also there were no lyrics, and the standard 1-4-5 12-bar chord progressions. I mean, for instance, if you were in E, the chords involved would be E, A, and B. So it's nearly drone-based, and maybe I was remembering this when we decided to make all the tracks on Quiet lyricless and over various cyclic riffs and rock-based fixed note scales, but with all the melodies sung to R or U, what we called expression vocals. I started making by making a tape, a cyclic riff of 4 notes, and it was just those going over and over, rocking, and I think it was dun 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 dun, and that for 10 minutes, so that I left it with Sheila to kind of make friends with the tape. Don't start thinking about writing, maybe play it quietly at meal times, when you're reading in your bedroom or you're going to sleep. Then maybe after a few days, once you got really used to it and your imagination started to work with it, kind of in the same way from my point of view as when I lost myself in the boogie woogie stuff. I think it's a really good way to ease yourself into writing. Anyway, I left it with Sheila, and after a few days, she gave me a call, and I said, well, if you want to introduce a 5th note, maybe for emotional effect, then play with it, but see what comes up. Maybe also picture a scenario, maybe paint a scene in your mind with the melody, and just go with it. And after 10 days, in the end, Sheila got some truly gorgeous melodies, which became part of Quiet 1. It was really helpful that Sheila had already got the sense of structure in songs and had a sense of maybe how they might be used. So we sat down together, worked out the right structure, and I think it was the fact that we decided to start with no lyrics that gave her extra confidence. It's quite a leap to go from being just the singer. I mean, in Sheila's case, you don't say just the singer, but to go from the singer to be the singer and the writer of that melody. But it's so important, and particularly when you've got a great voice like Sheila has, that you'd start tailoring, your writing to your own voice and your style, and that's why writers get the credibility. And she at that point was becoming both a writer and a vocalist, obviously. Really, each of the tracks on Quiet follow the same kind of rules. No lyrics, a cyclic riff, usually played on a different instrument or for a different track, and then each had a different starting point. Quiet 1's riff is played on a 4-note Balinese gamelan. Quiet 5's is played on a sitar in Rag Mishra Gawani, and the melody Sheila sings with it is it's kind of like Baroque in nature. And Quiet 6, well, Dharanbir Singh, our sitarist, had brought in a dilruba, which is a stringed instrument played with a bow. So we used that on one track. the whole thing was, was quite a challenge with no lyrics, but also, a lot of writers say that lyrics are the most difficult thing. So Sheila didn't have to consider that. Also, the tracks, because over the years they've been used in films and TV background, because they got no lyrics, which helps, but they also have a distinct atmosphere. And there's a lot of usages that we couldn't have imagined them going to when they get put into a film. One of the last things I want to say on Quiet is that Sheila was, of course, big news in the Asian community, and the National Asian TV program, which had just started on Channel 4, heard Quiet and said to Sheila, have you got any ideas for a video? We'd like to film it. And she did. She had a really interesting story where it's set at night, wet streets, 3 characters. So somewhere, I don't think it's on YouTube, I think it's got lost, but somewhere there's a track for Quiet 2 that's a video performance. One more thing would be the musicians. Some of the musicians that played with us on Monsoon stayed with us and came into our little humble recording setup, you could say. Really some top musicians, like people like Preston Heyman, who played with Kate Bush and Dennis Rent Darby, and is still playing with the top bands. And he's a multi-percussionist, all sorts of things. He played the gamelan. He played some percussive riffs that went around. And Paul James, top folk performer, now again still working even in 2012. And the Asian musicians, I've talked about Darren Bir Singh. He came from India, went through the whole Guru Shisha way of learning sitar with the maestro Vilayat Khan. Pandit Dinesh, percussionist, he played on, latterly, loads of the Bhangra tracks, but he played with Osibisa, and he was in the Hindi film setup, and a percussionist called Sarwar Sabri, again, a master percussionist, classically trained, and we had so many people come and help us. But then I played a few instruments. Martin Smith was the multi-instrumentalist, and then you got all the vocal. Really, Sheila was using her voice as an instrument on so many of the tracks, and then all the spoken percussion. So there was a lot of continuity, but each album represented a challenge.